Hello and welcome to the BA News Show, your weekly news show every Friday at 5 without fail. What is on today's show? Well, we're going to be talking finally about comparing the actual confirmed specs about the PlayStation and the Xbox, the next gen upcoming consoles. We're going to talk about rumours that Sony may be interested in getting some creative rights to certain games, which is very interesting if true. And then we're also just going to have a little brief discussion about the Resident Evil demo, which has dropped today. This is Thursday. We're filming on Thursday. But before we get into that, Tabs, have you played any games this week?
Yes, I have. I borrowed Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild from my good friend Bob, as my copy is currently with my nephew Joe, who some of you may remember from a video he once dropped on the channel for us, bless him. I'm in the process of restarting that game. So I've started on another standard playthrough, but I'm actually considering jumping up to master mode.
Nice. Go for it.
So I'm going to see how that feels, but just getting reacquainted with it, getting the Great Plateau out of the way, and I'm really enjoying it so far. It's certainly not aged in the short time since I played it last. But what have you been up to, Rich?
So this week, a bit more Gran Turismo, but not as much, because I started playing Command & Conquer 3 on the weekend, and I've just been completely hooked. It's one that I missed out on when it first came out. Late last year I bought the, I think it's called the Definitive Edition. It's all 17 Command & Conquers. So I was playing through some of them, and I started Tiberian Sun, and I thought, got a bit... Tiberian Sun's not my favourite. I know a lot of people would like that one, and I've never played Command & Conquer 3 because I didn't have a PC capable of playing it when it originally came out. So I started that, and I'm absolutely hooked on it. Really, currently playing through GDI. Anyone that's played it, I've just got to the bit where you start fighting the alien invasion of the Skrin. Really enjoying it.
What's so good about it then, mate? Tell us why it's so much of a step up from what you played previously in the series.
I feel like it's got the essence of all of the originals, so the little nods to the way some of the units move, and some of the coolness of the units, and some of the really cool units like the mammoth tanks and stuff, but it's got loads of quality of life features, like good graphics. You can a bit more user friendliness with the menus and all sorts of things. It's like the original with good graphics and loads of user friendly features. So and I like the fact that it's not do this. It's lots of do this, and here's a load of secondary objectives too, and that sort of makes you play it in a different way. And it's really good. I think they've done real wonders with it, and actually lots of the missions aren't just about destroy this base. It might be you only need to destroy this thing, so it doesn't matter. You could rush the base and just smash that thing. So it's really good. I'm really enjoying it.
And it's running okay on your Alienware Area 51M?
Oh yeah, full quality. The Alienware doesn't even spool up. It just ticks along completely silently, so it's obviously not using a great deal of power. Unfortunately, the frames are locked at 30 frames per second, which is a little bit of a shame. I'd like to see what we could get with the Alien, but I think you can unlock that with a patch, but it does seem to mess around with some of the cutscenes that are in the game and stuff. They don't seem to work quite, because they're obviously set at 30 frames. It seems to sort of mess them around, but really enjoying it.
Fantastic, mate. Well, perhaps we should pull the reins though before this becomes a CNC3 video.
Like every video should. So let's get straight into the first topic from today, which is finally we have confirmed spec. Earlier on this week we had confirmed spec of the Xbox Series X, and then yesterday, through a lengthy and quite tiresome technical I could only describe it as a lecture. We had the full details of almost all of the details that we're going to see in the PS5 hardware. The Mark Cerny took the conference. It was obviously from his presentation behind closed doors, and he just droned on and on for I think 50 minutes, which went into way too much granular detail for the likes of me and Tabs in terms of the understanding of lots of the things he was going on about. I don't know whether you'd agree with that, Tabs.
Oh, absolutely, mate. It was just so noisy, wasn't it? Really, the bottom lines of what he was talking about could have been compressed into less than a 10-minute video. And it felt like you say, it felt like this behind closed doors, like it had been, put out by mistake. Something that you would show to developers to get them on board, to really talk them through what they're going to be working with, or something that you would show to shareholders to try and give them confidence and, protect your share prices. But not something you put on display to gamers, the whole audience of gamers out there who, I would say maybe 5% of the audience of gamers would have had much of an understanding as to what was being talked about. Surely. Absolutely,
and to be fair, I mean, he did say this replaces basically our GDC conference planned content, which is a game developers conference, which unfortunately got cancelled. So I sort of understand that it was more directed towards game developers, and hence why it was so granular with the detail, so that they could understand what was coming down the line for the PS5 and how they would be programming, etc. for it. But to put that out and to label that as the PlayStation 5 reveal, suggesting that we're going to see all these glossy things and, they're going to blow us over with how amazing the system looked. Well, if anything, it was anything but that.
Just show us some games, mate. Just show us some games is all I would say.
Exactly. So, if the idea was to create a bit more hype, or, to try and counter the hype that the Xbox Series X has currently got going on, I don't think they really did that. It was very mundane. It wasn't dynamic at all. It was very one-dimensional.
And in fact, as we'll come on to, Rich, I think the amount of noise that was thrown in the air, being a bit cynical, almost seemed like they were padding. They were overcompensating for the fact that, well, essentially, by the end of it, we found out that at least a chunk of the components are lesser than what's going to be in the Xbox Series X. Which didn't come across that well, I didn't think, but...
And that's
yeah.
Go on.
No, I think we'll just have to wait for a Digital Foundry video, won't we, to break everything down, because at the minute it's clear as mud. But yeah, as you say, take us on, Rich.
So let's get on to those specs that Tabs has just mentioned. So we found out earlier on in the week that the Xbox Series X is going to have an AMD Zen 2 8-core processor, and that's going to be a 3.8 gigahertz processor. Now, the PlayStation 5 is also going to have an AMD Zen 2 8-core processor, but it's only going to be 3.5 gigahertz of speed. So not a great deal of difference there. Potentially you may not even see that difference. I think they're so close. It all depends on how it's programmed, I guess. But then we come to the graphics. The graphics is where it seems to all be at in this generation that's upcoming, and teraflops seems to be the word of the day. So let's talk about that. So both Xbox Series X and PlayStation 5 will both feature AMD's RDNA2 graphics processing unit. Both going to be 16 gigabytes GDDR6, but this is where the differences come. So the Xbox Series X is going to have 52 compute units, and that's going to give a teraflop of 12 teraflops. And differently, and another lower spec, the PlayStation 5 is going to have 36 compute units, which is going to give a teraflop of 10.28, so noticeably less than the Xbox Series X. Now, Mark Cerny talked in length about the fact that, and I guess this is why he talked at length, that actually the figures are sort of irrelevant. It's what you do with the teraflops and how you use them and how you restrict bottlenecks. So actually, in terms of the processing speeds, the GPU in the PlayStation 5, even though it's less teraflops, actually runs at a much higher speed at 2.23
gigahertz. Yeah,
compared to I think 1.8 something for the Xbox Series X. So it's really interesting, and I think I personally think lots of what was going on with this was to do with the fact that on paper the PlayStation 5 looks underpowered.
Yeah, I mean, I think the key thing, as we said there, Rich, is in brackets the variable frequency on CPU and GPU for the PlayStation 5, which seems to suggest they're going to compensate for that lack of power by boosting or having the ability to boost those components. The problem is we don't really know what that means in terms of, well, the power consumption of the components, because there's going to be a ceiling based on the power consumption, and also heat. So it's kind of, again, over to Digital Foundry to try and tell us a bit more about that, whether that can, achieve parity with the Xbox Series X based on these, this improved frequency.
And he went on to talk about one of what has been seemingly their key features, and he suggested that actually the SSD is probably one of the most important things of this generation, because it enables games. Developers to develop games in a way that they feel they can do. There's none of this like fillers while you're loading, such as like elevators or winding paths, which is really just taking your eye from the fact that they're loading the next piece of scenery that you're coming to. So, and we've heard that Xbox Series X is going to feature an NVMe SSD, 1TB, and also the PlayStation 5 is also going to feature an NVMe SSD, but theirs is a custom one, and it's 825 gigabytes. And the custom element seems to come from the fact they've got a custom flash reader that's on there, that's like a dedicated piece of hardware that basically helps seek the data within the SSD much quicker, which means it runs significantly faster than a standard, than lots of the standard offerings. And actually, when you look at it compared to the Xbox, I think it's nearly twice the speed in terms of the SSD tabs.
Well, you're on your own a little bit here, because I must have fallen asleep at this point in the conference. But yeah, I understand that it's the Xbox Series X is roughly has less than half of the raw throughput that the PS5 SSD solution does. It's 2.4 gigabytes per second for the Xbox Series X, and is it 5.5 gigabytes per second?
5.5, and actually he's gone so far as to say, unlike the Xbox Series X, which you're going to have, I think you're going to be able to buy a 1TB SSD that clips in basically. The PlayStation 5 is going to be able to have additional storage via SSDs, but unfortunately, because of this this controller they've got for the memory of the SSD, it has to be of a certain rated speed to even work with the system. So I think they were saying that it has to at least be capable of getting up to the 5.5 gigahertz, otherwise it won't be able to work with the PlayStation 5's flash controller, I think he called it.
Yeah, Cerny said, didn't he, hold off buying your M2 cards right now, wait until you've heard something from us on it. Yeah. I mean, it's weird, isn't it? Because in one way that suggests you've got a bit more choice, because you can go to the whole of the market for your options for cards, and potentially as well that might mean that you can get cheaper cards. Compared with the Xbox, where they've got this, would you call it, is it a proprietary solution, Rich?
Yeah, it almost looks like it's in a cradle already and it clips in, certainly from the images that I've seen.
And that means that they can obviously set that price on it, doesn't it? They've got more control of that. They could jack the price a little bit up, whereas, with Sony you can perhaps find a cheaper M2 card. But at the same time, Xbox are going to come out the gates with this proprietary add-on if you want it, whereas Sony, it sounds like, from what Cerny was saying, it's going to take a little bit of time to roll that out.
Well, it sounded like from what he was saying that they need to evaluate drives that are on the market, such as, say, the Samsung Evo Plus, which we've both got in our Alienwares. They need to evaluate how quick they are and recommend ones that will work with the system, which he sort of said they were hoping to get that done maybe shortly after release. So there's obviously quite a bit of time involved in doing that. Obviously at the moment they're concentrating on just getting the console out there. So it's interesting. I think that potentially there are some... Oh, and just to clear up, both consoles will be 4K Ultra HD Blu-ray, 4K support for both, 8K support for both, HDR support for both. Ports and dimensions we don't know, and the weight for the PlayStation, because we still don't know what anything is even going to look like. We do know that the Xbox Series X is going to have 3 USB-A 3 ports, HDMI, out, optical audio, priority memory slots, which is, I guess, for the SSD.
Yeah.
But that's pretty much all we've got on that. I know you wanted to just mention about the possible issue with developers tabs.
Yeah, well, there was a Eurogamer article which, as I say, we're struggling at this stage, reacting so early to it, to cut through all that noise and understand it, especially if you're not technically minded. But the Eurogamer article came out, basically said that the reality is that it requires developers to do more work to optimize games for the console, the PS5, until we can find out how it compares to the more powerful on paper Xbox Series X. So I think they're suggesting that basically it's all well and good having these boost modes on the CPU and GPU, variable frequencies to play with, but essentially that makes it harder for developers when they're making games across the consoles, because they have to do more work to optimize it specifically for that console. So, whether that means, you presume exclusives, of course, are going to be naturally optimized, aren't they? Because they're working on just that one platform. But for cross-platform stuff, whether we'll see, a kind of flip reversal on what we've seen in the previous generation, when the PS4 and Xbox One came out, you tended to see better performance, didn't you, on the PS4 compared to the Xbox One early doors. So whether we'll see that change, it remains to be seen. It's what do you think, Rich? He
sort of suggested that developers won't sort of know that all of this was going on inside. There's so much hardware in there, and it's all its optimization that it's got built in, that they'll develop on a certain platform, which I think he said was Kraken, I think. And
he talked about this brain at one point, didn't he? And how that can seemingly do something with shaders, and it sounded to me as if it was going to streamline some of the processes and perhaps free up GPU, CPU power. Whether that's true or not, because again, I was falling asleep regularly. And then obviously he talked at length about 3D audio, which seemed a bit gratuitous for me, but...
Like 15 minutes of 3D audio, and don't get me wrong, me and Tabs are well into audio. We've both got full surround systems. I've got a modern short system. Tabs has also a modern short system, actually, but with some additions.
With a Wharfdale edition, yeah.
But I was so tuned out at that point. The trouble with sound is you can explain it as much as you like, but it's the hearing of it that is the proof in the pudding. So,
yeah, and he was trying to big it up, wasn't he? I got lost in some of this HTRF stuff.
I know, yeah.
And then in the end, was he suggesting that we would be sending scans in of our heads or our ears?
Yeah, of our ears
to try and help customise the audio.
Yeah, it all got a bit crazy at that point.
Don't get me wrong, if we're playing games by the end of it and it's like an amazing 3D experience and it's that much more immersive because of it, fantastic.
Absolutely.
But again, is there a better way to demonstrate it than throwing up graphs and talking, acute detail, technical detail? Probably.
This is it. It wasn't pitched for us as gamers. It was pitched for more technically minded people, which probably are a minority in the people that are playing games and people that are developing games, basically. But we'll have to wait and see how that transpires into moving forward. I'm hoping down the line, because I just want to see what it is. I want to see the site. He talked at length about we needed to make it cost effective, but then he didn't even mention what sort of price we're looking at. So there's a lot to come down the line on this, and I do hope we don't have to wait months for the next piece of information on the PS5, because that will be super frustrating.
I just want to see some games. But yes, do let us know what you think, Barcadians. Raid, I'm going to call you out early doors, friend of the channel. I know Raid will have seen this and have some opinions on it, so I'd love to know what they are, my
Absolutely.
friend.
Definitely. So, moving on, Tabs. Take us into this next one, which also involves Sony.
So yeah, apparently, building on some previous rumours, and we've actually reported it on the BA News show in the past, but Sony has reportedly shown some interest in acquiring creative rights to Metal Gear, the franchise, Silent Hill, and Castlevania from Konami. So, and apparently, again, a heavy emphasis on the word apparently, with plans for Kojima Productions to at least make new games for the first two there, so Metal Gear and Silent Hill, which of course we know Kojima has previous with. So yeah, I think the gossip has come from a noted Konami leaker, Jack of all controllers, drawing from their own sources and other online rumours that we've seen tumbling along these past few weeks. And yeah, it seems to suggest that Sony are acting as something of a middleman, trying to mend that bridge between Konami and Kojima Productions. But I find it hard, Rich, to understand that why would Konami, unless it's for a very large amount of money, why would they sell the rights to those massive franchises? The only thing I could imagine is that they're going to loan the rights to Sony for maybe a period of games, a period of time.
Now, while I agree with you, it makes no sense, but for Konami, I would say at this current point, those franchises, certainly the first two, Metal Gear and Silent Hill, are dead. Because, let's face it, the last Metal Gear was some sort of weird survival game that got absolutely panned and didn't do anything at all, and they've sort of run out of ideas seemingly. So as far as they're concerned, that franchise is dead for me.
It's still plastered over all those pachinko machines that they have, though, isn't it?
And the same with Silent Hill, with obviously the fallout with Kojima and him moving on, that franchise effectively ended there. Because unless they can come up with someone with the amazingly creative to come out with something else, and let's look at what they've done in the past. Not a lot of what they've brought out in the past has not involved Kojima, if that makes sense. Certainly in the last 15 years. So if there was a chance to make a good chunk of money to sell those to someone else, especially if you kept a royalty right to it. So, okay,
yes,
we'll sell you the rights to Metal Gear and Silent Hill in their entirety, but as long with that, we want 5% royalties on any games you make and sell. Well, actually, that's win-win for Konami, because it's just another revenue stream that they can dip into without really doing a lot.
Yeah, no, I tend to agree with that. I think that, as you say, it's no longer viable given their tool set at the moment, because they've let so many key members of staff go with, probably into Kojima Productions. So yeah, absolutely. Unless they strike up some sort of an agreement with Sony that, as you say, they get some royalties from now until the end of time on any of those franchises, I just can't see how they would let it go entirely without a very robust package for them, because they're massive franchises.
Absolutely.
And they could be massive franchises for decades to come in the games industry. And that is, millions, perhaps even billions of pounds of revenue eventually, isn't it?
But what I can say, if there is some reality to this shadow that we're chasing in the games industry, then I think this could be a fantastic move for Sony. It gives Kojima Productions something else to work on. We know that they're well in with each other, and it means they can sort of say, this is sort of the path we'd like you to follow, Kojima. Please make us some games in this vein. Okay, no problem. So I think it's a very shrewd move from Sony if they can get this deal done.
Well, yeah, we know already they've got some colossal first-party franchises on the slow burn, and the likes of Horizon Zero Dawn, Spider-Man, God of War, and if this is true, well then that's 3 more colossal franchises added to the list, potentially at the hands of a very good developer who can do a lot with them. So it would be very shrewd. It's just how they're going to get that past Konami. I really hope they do, because my word, we want to see them come back, don't we, as gamers?
Absolutely. So finally, we know today that the Resident Evil 3 Nemesis remake demo drops, or has dropped. I know, Tabs, you've actually seen some. I've not long been up and about, so you've actually seen some gameplay on this.
Yeah, there's actually a channel on YouTube I checked out, The Rad Brad, it's called, and he's dropped basically a full walkthrough gameplay demo as he plays of this new trailer, in this new demo rather. It looks to be about half an hour long. I think his completion time was 25 minutes. essentially, you do some zombie fighting, you do a couple of puzzles, you can actually acquire a shotgun in it from the looks of things, and then it ends with a confrontation with Nemesis, which, is entertaining, and then you get some sort of trailer at the end as a little cinematic as a reward, I suppose, for it. Seemingly, you can replay this demo as much as you like, so it's not going to be, locked in terms of it's just a one-time thing, which is interesting. So yeah, if you are at all interested in the remake, you enjoy Resident Evil 2, perhaps worth getting that on the download. I think it comes in at somewhere between 7 and 8 gigabytes. And,
Not too bad, then.
not too bad. And you can start practicing your chops again on this new Resident Evil remake before the drop.
And on that note, BArcadians, we have filmed and in the process of editing a Resident Evil 3 video. We talk about the story, a little bit about gameplay, enemies, Nemesis, look at some concept art. Coming down the line, not sure when at the moment, depends when we can get it edited for, but definitely look out for that if you are interested in Resident Evil.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, we've said on the video, feedback's always welcome. Let us know if you want to see anything different, anything more, and we can look to turn that into a series running up to the launch of Resident Evil 3 Remake.
Absolutely. So I think that's all we've got time for in terms of the news today. If you like the video, give us a like. It really does help support and grow the channel. If you're not subscribed, become a BArcadian today and get subscribed. And if you click that bell, you can stay abreast of all our notifications for new content. And I think that's about it. Another one for the archive.
Stamped and completed.